Ever feel like the internet is watching your every move? You Google how to fix my Wi-Fi and suddenly your feed is filled with routers. There's a reason for this. Your browser is able to watch and store your digital activity, and that's why it thinks you're fascinated by Wi-Fi or whatever else you've been searching for of late. But you can put an end to this using today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. I recently started using Surfshark VPN and it works a treat. It encrypts everything I do online so that snoopers, trackers, or even sketchy coffee shop Wi-Fi hackers can't see what I'm up to. It also busts through censorship and geo restrictions. Want to access local reporting overseas or foreign analysis or other content that you can't get in your region? Surfshark opens that door for you. All you need is one account to secure all of your devices. Laptop, phone, tablet, even your smart TV. No juggling subscriptions, it's just one click and you're done. They also have a product called Surfshark Search, which is incredible. It lets you search the web without all the ads and targeted nonsense cluttering up your results. It really is a breath of digital fresh air. Free yourself from the tyranny of big tech today with Surfshark. Go to surfshark.com/lastorders or use the promo code lastorders, all one word, at the checkout for 4 extra months. That's surfshark.com/lastorders or lastorders, all one word, at checkout. You'll find all of this information in the show notes. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. No risk, just secure browsing. Do check it out.
It will be horrible stuff. It will be a massive boondoggle, and it will fail. But it's Nesta's fault again. Nesta, they're a scourge.
It all feeds into this dark, swirling, conspiratorial mindset that just presumes, without the benefit of evidence, that something incredibly dark is going on. And often, that's just not true.
And when you've got a conspiracy theory that involves lots of powerful people, then I guess it's more plausible to say that, well, they would cover it up if they got the power to do so.
Hello and welcome back to Last Orders. I'm Tom Slater, editor of Spiked, joined as I am in every episode by Chris Snowdon, my co-host. How you doing, Chris?
Not too bad. Nice to be here, as ever.
And we're delighted to be joined, returning to the show, Spike's own Brendan O'Neill. How are you doing, Brendan?
I'm good, thanks, Tom.
Thanks for coming on the show, not least because we're going to talk about one of the big topics in the news this week and also one of the big conspiracy theories of our time, Jeffrey Epstein. So this week, the Trump administration upset a lot of people in his own base, I think it's fair to say, by announcing, the FBI that is, that Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced and now deceased financier, not only did not have this client list, which so many people assumed he did, lists of his associates who might have been engaged in the nefarious sexual activities he was found guilty of, but also that the idea that maybe his suicide in prison wasn't all that it seemed, maybe that someone interfered with him, also wasn't true. They released this long piece of footage discrediting that other theory. Brendan, I think it's fair to say that it hasn't stopped the true believers, but you wrote a piece this week saying that you felt like the conspiracy theory has unravelled. Do you want to tell us a bit about why you came to that conclusion?
Yeah, it's definitely unravelling, I would say. And, you know, the two core pillars of the conspiracy theory have fallen apart. The first is that he didn't really kill himself. We've all heard that. You can't go on the internet without seeing someone say that. And the other one is that he had this client list. Not only did he have a client list, but he was using it to blackmail all these important people. You know, Michael Jackson when he was alive, Prince Andrew, Stephen Hawking. Yeah. You know, anyone who thinks Stephen Hawking was abusing women is obviously living in cloud cuckoo land. But there was this idea that there was an Epstein list. It contained the names of lots of incredibly powerful people, the Clintons, Hollywood types, all sorts of, you know, nefarious actors who were up to no good on Pedo Island, which is how people refer to Jeffrey Epstein's private island. And the story was that Epstein was using this list to blackmail people. And there's no proof for it whatsoever. That's what the FBI and the DOJ have basically said. They've scoured everything that Epstein had. They've scoured hard drives, paper documents, files, and they found no evidence that this list exists. And what I find interesting is the response to it. People are really, really pissed off because they've had the rug pulled from under their feet. You know, the theory through which they derived a sense of meaning in their lives, through which they understood the whole world, the nature of power, that entire theory has been taken away from them with a click of the fingers, and they're really, really angry about it. So I think it demonstrates how important conspiracy theories have become to certain constituencies, where they have become the main means through which people understand the world around them.
Absolutely. At the same time, I suppose, just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, I know Chris wants to do the same because he's a a
Go for it.
white-hot believer in this conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But people will say, okay, maybe this isn't some kind of grand conspiracy that goes right to the top of power, but maybe there's things about this story that don't really add up. There were the claims that also came out this week that there are as many as 1,000 victims of sex abuse by Jeffrey Epstein. His partner in crime, as it were, Ghislaine Maxwell, is in prison for sex trafficking, but people are saying, was this purely just for his own sort of depraved appetites? Could he really keep this life of associating himself with so many of the rich and powerful entirely separate from this kind of industrial scale sex trafficking? I mean, are there not, I suppose, some questions hanging around this at the very least? Are people just looking at it in the wrong way, do you think?
No smoke without fire, Brendan.
There might be questions, absolutely. These are bad people. Not all of them. I'm sure some of them are lovely people. Although Stephen Hawking was apparently a bit of a rotten character, supposedly.
Riding around on Pedo Island. Yeah.
Was he? What was he doing?
No, well, just his personal life. There's been lots of memoirs about it and stuff.
He got beaten up by his wife. That wasn't his fault.
Well, anyway, but on Epstein and his associates, these are not nice people, right? These are backstabbing, wealthy, promiscuous, arrogant people, and people like that tend to do things that are either against the law or certainly skirting very close to that. And Epstein did. He was trafficking girls and having sex with girls as young as 14. That's obviously incredibly bad and criminal, and he was punished for it. So yes, there may be questions to answer about some of what they did and some of what the other people did, but it's so interesting that even the response to this collapse of this conspiracy theory proves that it was a conspiracy theory. So the Ghislaine Maxwell example that people say all the time, they say, well, was she trafficking girls to no one? Who was she trafficking girls to? You say that on Twitter, you will get 500,000 retweets. Not one of those people have read the federal charges against Maxwell, for which she was in prison for 20 years, which solely concerns her trafficking of girls for Jeffrey Epstein. That's what that entire case is about. You can read it. It's on the DOJ website. It charges her, and she was found guilty, of trafficking young girls and minors for the sexual gratification of Jeffrey Epstein, and in some cases she was actually involved in what he did. That's all that she did. That's all that she's in jail for. She's in jail for procuring girls for one man. So when people say, oh, what did she do then? Well, it's there in black and white.
Just have to read it.
You just have to read it. It's not hard to find. And so that's become one of the big question marks hanging over what the Trump administration has done. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? It's obvious why she's in prison. Now, people say that she's taking the flak for Epstein, or that she's been punished beyond what she actually did. I'm open to all those kinds of arguments, whatever. But she's in jail for a very specific crime. So even the response, even this thing of saying, well, it doesn't add up and there must be something going on, and now it's clear that Trump is part of the conspiracy and Pam Bondi is part of it, and the guy who runs the FBI, whose name I've forgotten, what's his name? Kash Patel, he's in on it. It all feeds into this dark, swirling, conspiratorial mindset that just presumes, without the benefit of evidence, that something incredibly dark is going on, and often that's just not true. And
while we're on the subject of the dark, swirling, conspiratorial mindset, let's pass over to Chris, the believer in this conspiracy theory on the panel today. What do you want to ask of Brendan here?
Well, I'm very disappointed that Brendan's been taken in by the lamestream Clintonite media.
Sucked in.
I feel I should say a few words on behalf of probably the majority of our viewers. We've already alienated with our anti-Letby position.
I believe you've got some slides as well.
Small PowerPoint presentation. I'll caveat this by saying I don't know anything about this case at all, really.
It's a good place.
But
most people don't.
I heard that he hadn't killed himself, that he was murdered. I heard he definitely was a pedo, and he had an island. So he did have a pedo island, up to a point.
Yeah.
And just because we didn't find a list doesn't mean there wasn't a list. And it could have been all up there as well. Probably was, all those famous names. Stephen Hawking, Donald Trump.
Prince Andrew.
Prince Andrew, definitely.
Yeah. He's allowed to fly again, which is, justice has finally been done.
So, I don't believe in any conspiracy theories. This is the only one that I was tempted by. It seems quite a harmless conspiracy theory. It does involve a definite pedo.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily involve a pedo ring, but it kind of, there's trafficking going on with Maxwell. I don't think it's much of a jump to suggest that this man who knew all these other rich, famous, probably perverted people was trafficking children to fellow pedos. And you can't prove that he didn't.
Yeah. That's the point. You can't, no conspiracy theory can really be disproven. That's one of the most annoying things about them. 15 years ago, I was sent to interview the 9/11 truthers, who all lived in this big, nice house in Hampstead. They just lived there together. All these posh people who thought that 9/11 was an inside job. And it was so infuriating because they were saying the most insane things, but it was really impossible to challenge them, precisely because what they were saying was so insane about, does metal burn at this temperature, or what happened to Building 7, or
steel beams,
or look at this little glitch, maybe proving that the planes were holograms.
What about Building 7, Brendan?
All that, right? So, and then you give them the evidence as it exists, and they have a million more questions. That's the nature of the conspiracy theory. I mean, they're actually, I'm very much a firm believer in the marketplace of ideas, but it's really genuinely not worth discussing anything with a conspiracy theorist, because they're not normal people and they don't respond in a normal way. But on the Epstein thing,
but you would say
on the Epstein thing,
who got to you, Brendan?
It's the thing is, it's the thing that gives it away that it's a conspiracy theory is the extrapolation. So if people were just saying, well, Prince Andrew's a dodgy character or whatever, I don't mind any of that. People can say what they want about those individuals, but it's the extrapolation from the fact that Epstein was a pedo, the fact that he was rich, and the fact that he hung out with other rich people, the extrapolation from that to paint this story about a paedophilic ruling class, or Hillary Clinton hiring a hitman to go into that federal jail to kill him.
They're in some sort of satanic cult.
Then gets involved, and then the Israel question, and the Mossad question, and the Jewish question, and people say, well, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, Robert Maxwell, was allegedly an Israeli agent, and Epstein might have been a Mossad agent, and therefore maybe that's involved. So it's that constant process of extrapolation that lets you know you are firmly in the territory of conspiracy theory. If people were just saying, I think Bill Clinton's a bit of a pervert, or I think Stephen Hawking had a dark side, I don't care if people say that. It may well be true, but it's the extrapolation from it to tell a story about the whole world. Then you know where you are.
But yeah, I mean, joking aside, the frustrating thing with conspiracy theories is that they get these little ideas which supposedly prove their conspiracy theory. Usually they're things they've just misunderstood, actually. Or it's a little gap in knowledge that they can kind of fill anything into. And then that gap of knowledge is eventually filled with the truth, or the actual meaning of something is explained to them. And rather than back down, they will double down. And ultimately they will just accuse everybody of lying. I mean, literally everybody lying in the end, because that's all you're left with. If your little piece of evidence falls apart, then you go, oh, well, the person who's disproved this is a liar. And I guess in this instance, it's like, well, the FBI are lying, Donald Trump's lying.
Yeah,
and they would do that because they're implicated in it in some way. And when you've got a conspiracy theory that involves lots of powerful people, then I guess it's more plausible to say that, well, they would cover it up if they've got the power to do so.
Yeah. And then the other thing, that's exactly right. And then the other thing that people are saying is that people are saying, well, why did Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, why did she say, I've got the Epstein list on my desk? But she didn't say that. She was asked questions about the Epstein list and the whole controversy, and she said, I've got this issue on my desk. She was talking about it was in her inbox as one of the things that she needed to address or think about. And so everything gets twisted.
It's a poor choice of words.
Everything gets completely twisted to backtrack and to show that it's always been a conspiracy. They've all been involved. But partly the problem is that the Trumpists have brought it on themselves. Because Donald Trump did say, we're going to release the JFK files and we're going to release the Epstein list.
And there was nothing in there either, was it?
There was nothing there. Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK and Jeffrey Epstein was a paedophile. There's nothing we didn't already know.
Did you see the Penelope Keefe note? They'd been hidden away for 60 years. Somebody obviously joking sent a letter to the FBI saying, I believe that Penelope Keefe was involved in the assassination of your president. And they clearly didn't know who Penelope Keefe was, I guess. And so this became one of the most top secret files. Because they've had loads of releases of this stuff over the years. After the film came out 30 years ago, they released massive stuff. And there's a little bit left. And everyone goes, well, that obviously the important stuff is going to be in there. And they released it. There was nothing in it at all. And this ridiculous thing about the good life.
And then people were still freaking out because they'd taken the social security numbers off of the thing. So it's like they're still hiding this information from us. Nothing will feed the appetite. Just in case we haven't completely alienated the entire audience, Chris, should we turn to Lucy Letby Corner?
Let's take a saunter down to Lucy Letby Corner, yeah.
Lucy Letby Corner.
We don't always do Lucy Letby Corner, but this week calls for it because there's been two very big developments. There has been the arrest of 3 of the hospital leadership at the Countess of Chester Hospital, where Lucy Letby murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 7 more. And there's also the development, there are other charges for Lucy Letby that the CPS is apparently looking at. Shall we start with these arrests of the hospital leadership itself and what that means? Because they've been very quick to stress that this has nothing to do with Letby's convictions. But do you want to tell us a bit more about what we know?
They made a point of saying that, but that didn't stop all the Letby's completely misunderstanding what was going on. No. So this news came out last week, I think. And at first, the Lettbyists assumed that the police had arrested some of the doctors at the hospital, because one of their theories is like the doctors are responsible for the death of these babies, and they used Letby as a scapegoat. And then when they realised it was, in fact, the managers, they assumed that, they'd been arrested because they ran the hospital so badly, and that's why they died, because that's the other theory, that it was just poor care. And I don't know if they've still quite twigged the reality of it, which they've been arrested for it's actually gross negligence manslaughter, basically because they should have spotted there was a homicidal nurse on the prowl. That's almost certainly the real reason they've been arrested. That was what the Thirlwell inquiry was primarily about. Whether they'll be charged or not, I have no idea. The evidence bar for gross negligence manslaughter apparently is extremely high.
Because they could get life in prison if they...
Yeah, the difference between gross negligence manslaughter and corporate manslaughter is that corporate manslaughter applies to institutions, whereas gross negligence manslaughter applies to individuals. So yeah, they could, as individuals, get quite a lot of time in prison if it can be shown that their actions led to some of these deaths. Which, to be fair, although they did not acquit themselves very well as managers or in the Thirlwell inquiry, I think it's fairly hard, I would say, to make a case that lives could be saved if they'd acted... Well, obviously, in theory, lives could be saved if they'd acted differently, but I think it's quite difficult to point to a particular moment. I think it was more after she was taken off the ward, that was when they slowed things down and got the doctors to apologise and put off a police investigation. But they had taken off the ward, so there were obviously no more murders after that. And I don't know. But still, it sucks to be a Letbyist, basically.
And at the very least, it does remind you that, contrary to the narrative amongst the Lettbyists, that this was... Lucy Letby was thrown under the bus to obscure the failings of the hospital and the hospital management in general. It completely ignored the fact that hospital management sided with her. They did get those. Yeah. They demanded those doctors who were blowing the whistle and raising their concerns apologise to her. They essentially bought this explanation that these were doctors waging a kind of snobby war against this poor nurse, rather than that they were part of this sort of...
Yeah, it's like what I was just saying before about, you knock down one thing and they come up with something else. It was, this hospital had a bad reputation, and so she was fitted up for it. It was like, well, no, the manager, like I say, the managers were trying to stop an investigation because it would give the hospital a bad reputation, actually. No one knew about what was going on in the hospital, this little spike in death. It wasn't like it was national news until, obviously, Letby was charged and so on. So now they've turned to, it's the doctors. The doctors were worried they were going to get caught out for this and that. It's all obviously nonsense. So anyhow, the second thing is new charges against Letby. Operation Hummingbird has been going on all this time, and they've passed over a file of evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, and obviously it's up to the CPS now whether they want to charge her, and who knows what's in it, but it is a file of evidence. Apparently, according to Peter Hitchens, there was no evidence in the previous case, and yet the police keep managing to find evidence to give to the CPS, and the CPS keep charging her. I'm a little bit concerned that I have no idea how many people now think that Letby is innocent. I haven't got a clue. It could be 2%, could be 50%. I don't know. Let's say it's 20%. Then if you pick a jury at random and 20% of them think she's innocent, then she's probably going to get off no matter what, isn't she?
How many people at the Criminal Cases Review Commission, has this view corrupted at this point?
I think they're probably pretty pretty sensible
Yeah.
on it. I wouldn't worry about them too much. But another jury, you only need to have 3 people out of 12 who are just going to, regardless of any evidence, say, I think she's already in prison for nothing. So it's, I think, a touch risky charging with more offences, but who knows what the evidence is. So,
Brendan, you got any views on Letby, pro, anti? What's your feel on this particular?
Well, everything I know about Lucy Letby comes from this podcast. So I'm pretty anti-Letby, as you can guess. I don't follow it as obsessively as
No one
Chris
does, really, I think.
gallantly does on behalf of the reasoned section of humanity. But the thing that does freak me out is the pro-Letby crowd. They really do freak me out because they're obviously obsessed in a way that has nothing to do with justice. I'm old enough to remember the cases of the Guildford 4 and the Birmingham 6. There was genuine concerns amongst ordinary people and campaigners and lawyers that they'd been wrongly imprisoned, and it turned out they had been. And I remember you would encounter people like that who were campaigning for their release, or you'd see them on TV. They were normal people. They didn't think that the Guildford 4 and the Birmingham 6 were the best human beings that ever lived. They didn't think they were, wonderful, special, virtuous creatures.
They weren't holding birthday parties
They
for
weren't
them.
holding birthday parties for them. They weren't,
didn't think they were whistleblowers.
No, they didn't. They didn't go in for any of that. It was just a normal miscarriage of justice campaign. But when you look at this one, it's got such a creepy edge to it. And I know that's partly because we have the internet now, and we didn't have the internet in the late 1980s. And so that lends it to all sorts of weird obsessions. But when I see these people or read about them, they remind me, do you remember during COVID when the vaccine was going out and people would turn up at vaccine centres waving documents saying, we've got these documents from the UN or something saying you're guilty of genocide. Do you remember that? And it was just complete bullshit. They remind me of those people.
That Venn diagram is a circle, I think. in
Yeah,
terms of the
I think
groups
they're
we're
very
talking
similar people, which is that they get this bee in their bonnet, they obsess over it. There is not one sliver of sunlight of disinfectant that could change their minds. Absolutely not one spot of sunlight could make them change their minds. They are now devoted to this cause in a way that I actually find quite frightening. And my personal view is that she did it, and it is unforgivable that people are out there campaigning day after day in this really creepy way for a pretty wicked killer to be freed from jail. That's my view.
There's some of them, like Phil Hammond at Private Eye and Peter Hitchens, they insist that they don't know whether she's innocent or not. Now, I'm pretty sure they must think she's innocent, otherwise they wouldn't be constantly banging on about it. But their official position is, we just don't know. Well, has there ever, this is a genuine question, has there ever been a miscarriage of justice uncovered, a person released from prison, not because of a campaign like with the Guildford 4, where you had people going, we've got evidence that they're innocent, we know it wasn't them, we've got to free them as soon as possible. But on the contrary, a load of people who, officially at least, say, I'm not sure about whether she got a fair trial or not. I think we should just redo it. Let's just rerun the 10-month trial again.
They don't seem the type.
No.
That's about as far as...
it doesn't, I don't think that's ever happened before, where you've had a retrial and someone released from prison just because a few people are like, I don't know about this case, seems a bit fishy to me.
No.
And we really have alienated everyone now, because you've even brought the anti-vaxxers into it.
Exactly.
So there's no one left.
Sorry, guys.
There's no one left
We've
watching
lost the
for
whole
our
audience.
final item.
No, exactly. that attempt to get Peter Hitchens on for the great clash that we wanted to stage, I think the prospects of that are vanishing by the
gone.
day. You two are just flaming each other on Twitter
Yeah, he
every
always
other
loses.
hour now.
He does always lose. I think.
No, exactly. He's rattled as far as you're concerned. Chris, shall we go back to what this podcast is nominally about, which is about the nice states? Wes Streeting, our beloved health secretary, has announced as part of his 10-year plan for health that he's struck up this sort of partnership or blackmail campaign with supermarkets to try and force them to help us reduce our calories. It seems to be there's all kinds of initiatives they want to engage in, moving certain products around the shop, maybe reformulating certain products.
Yum, yum. Yeah.
All kinds of nudges and measures to try and cut some cursory amount of calories from our diet. I think he was saying that if everyone just had 200 calories left, we'd halve obesity.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sounds slightly implausible to me, but I'm not a statistician. Do you want to tell us a bit about this plan and what you make of it?
Yes, old Wes. He's having a hard time, isn't he, at the moment with the junior doctors? Poor fella. Always looks very downbeat these days. He kind of looks AI generated. Can I say that? Do you know what I mean? There's something about Wes Streeting. I'm not saying he's an ugly man. He's not.
But
But he
it's
just
oddly
looks a
shaped
little
head,
bit.
yeah.
It
That's
just
not
looks,
quite-
with AI, you look more, it looks very realistic, and then you see they've got 6 fingers or an eyebrow upside down, something like that. Whereas I can't put my finger on why he doesn't look entirely human. There's something about him, I don't know.
Right in with your conspiracy theories.
I'm
isn't it?
not knocking him. I kind of like him because the junior doctors hate him, and my enemy's enemy, and all that kind of thing. Anyway, back to the supermarket. So this is just another rehash of the stupid ideas of Public Health England and the previous government, really. It all comes down to insane public health dogma, which in this instance is that basically big business makes people do things. Individuals have no agency. So all we need to do is get big business to change its ways in very subtle, in a subtle fashion, and the ignorant public will start eating different diets, will lose weight without noticing it. What could be simpler? It massively exaggerates the importance and influence of advertising in people's lives as a way of changing their behaviour, as opposed to maybe making them try a new brand of something, which is what it actually does. And it greatly exaggerates the power of commerce in general. So they think that, well, most people buy their food from supermarkets. Yeah, that's true. Supermarkets sell healthy as well as so-called unhealthy food. So we'll just get the supermarkets to nudge people towards the healthy stuff, and they'll eat 200 fewer calories or 300 fewer calories, whatever Wes thinks it can do. It's exactly the same principle as the food reformulation idea, which is now 10 years old and was a complete and utter flop. Complete fiasco, reformulation. The food companies, some of them did go along with reformulating food. We took the sugar out, we took the salt out, we took the fat out, and people just didn't buy it. And so it didn't lead to any decline in sugar consumption, the whole sugar reduction scheme. The cereals did genuinely become less sugary, and yogurts and all sorts of other foods became less sugary, but people just stopped buying them, started buying the real stuff again. So this isn't going to work because actually consumers do have agency. Individuals do know what's going on. They do notice actually when your food becomes less tasty or your beer gets watered down, which is another of these bloody stupid nudge kind of things. Kronenberg in particular, awful these days. Have you tried Kronenberg recently, Brendan?
No.
Stella is 4.6 now.
Oh, God.
Everything's dreadful. That's why this is sponsored by Birra Moretti podcast, because it is only 4.6, but it's always been 4.6. That's the difference.
It's the principle of the thing.
Yeah. So it's a daft idea. It's not going to work. Supermarket's gone along with it, kicking the can down the road. And in a way, actually, I think maybe the government's kicking the can down the road, because what they're doing is they're saying, well, firstly, we need to have a baseline measurement for the supermarkets. We need to know what supermarkets are selling at the moment. So we're going to introduce mandatory monitoring. All the supermarkets are going to have to tell us what they're selling, what's in an average trolley of food, and all this kind of thing. And then in 2029, right at the end of the Parliament, they're going to set the targets. Well, that's kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
I could probably do it quicker.
For
than
Nigel
that
Farage to preside
if they
over
want,
it.
and he'll just
Yeah,
cancel
yeah.
it.
It's just
Yeah. So that's quite good. Also, I'm very puzzled. How do they know? You go shopping, you fill your trolley up with food, you pay for it. How do they know how many people you're buying for? How do you divide this up to daily calorie intake? For how many people? You might be going there every day. You might be going there once a week. It might be on for you. It might be for a family of 8. I don't see this working so much.
What do you think, Brendan? Either about the scheme or about the whether or not West Streeting is AI generated? Pick up anything you want to talk about.
I don't actually hate West Streeting. I think he's all right. He's one of the few working class ministers.
Yeah, I don't mind.
There's not that many of them around. His backstory is actually quite interesting. I'm not sure he's the best person in the world to talk about calorific intake. It reminds me slightly. Do you remember Jamie Oliver kept going on about calories, and he was getting bigger and bigger every week.
Yeah.
I think, Jamie, maybe not you, but the main problem, I am disagreeing with Chris to a certain extent here, because I think supermarket deals really work, and I love them. So in my local Morrison's, there's a deal aisle, and you walk down it, and suddenly a 5-pack of twirls is £1 instead of £2, and I will get them every single time. And a Sugar Puffs is £2 instead of £3, and you just think, okay, I'm saving money, I'll buy this stuff. You end up throwing a lot of it out.
Well, especially Sugar Puffs, they're rubbish. They've been reformulated.
Yeah, and so so they're not so sugary, but it works. It's a nice thing about going shopping, that they offer you these sweet treats, and it's less costly than normal. So
Right, but if those offers were on like turnips and sprouts, would you say, oh great, that's a
no,
bargain?
that's the thing. So the government interference in that to try and shift supermarkets away from doing that nice stuff to doing stuff that no one wants is really, really infuriating. I mean, in terms of people noticing that this nudging is taking place, that is so true. The thing that, I'm sure you guys have talked about this before, the thing everyone notices is the size of bars of chocolate. Everyone I know at some point has said, is it just me or is this Mars bar really small? A Mars bar is now basically a fun-sized Mars bar.
Yeah, it's a scandal.
It's astonishing how much
Cultural
they are.
vandalism
They're
is
just
what
shrinking all the time. But, you know, my main issue with all of this is just the colonization of every area of life by this governmental instinct to tell us what to do. You know, going to a supermarket, for some people, it's a bit of a chore. It's the weekly shop. You've got to get loads of stuff. It's stressful. Other people enjoy going to the supermarket. They find new treats.
Like you, obviously.
I like going, get some twirls.
You know which aisle to catch him in if you want to try and find it.
It's a part of life where you don't expect to have Wes Streeting peering over your shoulder. You know, it's one of those free arenas of life where you are engaging in a very open way between, you know, the individual and the market. And they're saying, buy this, and you're saying, okay. Or no, I won't buy it. And so governmental interference into that kind of quite intimate, fun relationship, I find really annoying. You know, Karl Marx made this point. Karl Marx said one of the great things about capitalist society is that they're constantly trying to tantalize you and tempt you and say, get this, get that. It creates this kind of frisson in everyday life. And
Didn't
now
you think that
we
was a
have,
bad thing, though?
No, he thought it was great.
Oh, did he? Oh.
And so now we have this new kind of nanny, and I've always thought nanny state is too weak a term to describe this instinct to interfere in every area of life. It feels more tyrannical than this kind of Mary Poppins image. But now we have a government that wants to step into all of these relatively free relations that exist in a market society, whatever its limitations might be. And I just find it depressing.
Well, do you know the other thing they're doing? And this is also another Nesta idea. Do you know Nesta?
Yeah.
I hate Nesta. It's a sort of think tank, sort of. It was originally set up as an engine of innovation, 1998. He was given £250 million. It's had God knows how many millions of pounds since. But the whole point was it was going to find creative people. I mean, like sort of a government-run Dragon's Den or something. You get these brilliant inventors and you give them money and you encourage them. They never did anything except turn down somebody who basically invented the iPhone before Apple did. So he invented the smartphone and go, oh, I don't think that'll never fly. So they're now focused very much on climate change and obesity, almost to the exclusion of everything else. Their innovative ideas are just subsidising things. So let's get people to get more heat pumps by subsidising them. Well, that's well worth the £1 billion you've had from the taxpayer over the last 20-odd years. And their idea for obesity, which the government is also introducing, because they came up with the supermarket thing first. The idea, let's fine supermarkets if they don't change people's diet. They're now, the government is doing a pilot scheme, and Karl Marx might approve of this, of state-owned restaurants, basically, or certainly state-subsidised restaurants, to make make a healthy food accessible to the poor, because who apparently can't find it.
Sort of like what your man Zoran Mamdani in New York wants to do with grocery stores.
Yeah.
Is that right?
He wants state-run grocery stores.
Yeah, but he's like quite openly a socialist, isn't he? Where
Whatever that means
I don't
now,
think
but yeah.
streeting is as such. Anyhow, whatever it is, socialist. It's a stupid idea. It won't work. You know the kind of healthy food it's going to be. It's going to be unpalatable mush. It won't just be like cheap fruit and veg. It will be horrible stuff. It will be a massive boondoggle, and it will fail. But it's Nesta's fault again. Nesta, they're a scourge.
There's a title for the podcast. We're fast running out of time, Brendan, but since we've last had you on, we've introduced, I should say, a couple of kind of bonus round questions. If you had to have one band, what would it be? And also this new theories question, which we're sort of soft launching because people can't quite
It's
get
not
their
really
heads
well.
around
It's a bit broad.
It is a little bit broad, but we're hoping
we're going to try it for a few
you'll
more
help us
weeks.
give it shape. Because the last guest didn't really go for it. But should we start with that one? If you had to have one ban, what would it be? The only rule is that it can't be anything worthy. You can't ban hunger or whatever, or war, or what have you.
You are a dictator.
Mine is, I think, predictable, and people have probably said it on this pod before, and I'm not joking, I really would ban it. I would ban speaking on your mobile phone on public transport.
Yep.
Like,
We need to get like a leaderboard. That would definitely be up the top.
I would
at this point.
literally, yeah, I'm sure everyone says it, but I am passionate about this, and I would, I know this is the jokey section of the pod, which I love, but I would literally do it. I would institute a law making it illegal, except in proven emergencies, to talk on your phone. Because the reason why is because, and I am now, I am the most Karen person in London. On my way here, I told someone to stop talking on his phone.
So this is not playing music on your phone. Or
No,
this is using the phone for what it's
using
actually
the phone
designed
to
for.
speak.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I
out
don't
loud,
think,
the kind of,
and also
big phone.
people do
speakerphone.
People
Do you
do.
object to
No,
this?
I object to all conversations.
Okay, right.
Okay.
But the FaceTime ones where you can hear them and the
Quiet
other
characters
person,
for all, that's
that's
worse, yeah.
much, much worse.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think I've come to this conclusion that it's the most grotesquely antisocial thing you can do, and it is so demeaning to everyone else around you. And what it really demonstrates is that there is this. We live in such an era of atomization that people don't even think about the people around them. They see them as NPCs, non-player characters who are just floating around. You could just as easily shoot them dead like you do in a video game, or have a phone conversation that will piss them off because they don't matter. That's what irritates me. And the thought of ever having a phone conversation on public transport fills me with horror that I cannot describe. Maybe it's because I'm from the 80s. I remember that you used to have to phone people from your house. We didn't have mobile phones. It was alien to us. But I do think it feeds into and it feeds off this culture of extreme individuation where you are the only person that matters. And so I would ban it.
What kind of age are
Instantly.
people who do this? Because generally speaking, young people
I think it's
don't
everyone
phone
now.
people
Everyone
up at
does
all.
it
They're
now.
just texting.
It's across all age
it?
brackets, all demographics. Wherever it
Face-
started, it's
FaceTiming,
everywhere
there's quite a
now.
bit of that.
Young
yeah.
people don't actually have phone conversations.
No,
But
they
look,
don't.
I tell you
That's
what
the same.
young people do, and I've told them to stop doing this. They record voice notes, which is even worse because I was on a train coming back from Heathrow Airport, so I was tired and cranky, and this young woman next to me, girl in her teens, was recording a voice note, telling her friend about everything that happened the night before. And I just turned to her and said, "Stop it." And then she said on the voice note, "I have to stop. Some man is telling me to stop," and then press stop. So young people don't actually have phone conversations. They text and they do voice notes. It's kind of millennials, people in their 30s and 40s.
Worst generation.
If old people have a conversation on their phone, I don't mind because you think that's probably an emergency. Because if you're 62 and you're fishing out your phone and you're doing this,
I guess I'm lumping in all
that's
kinds
obviously
of
quite important.
all kinds of phone-related
Not
stuff.
really,
I suppose is the thing.
There's
That's
a lot- old people just like speaking on the phone. No,
But
young
phones,
people don't
stop
have
it.
phone calls, and old people do. I wouldn't assume it's an emergency. It's just someone having a natter. You should tell them to stop it.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't mind. But, the thing is, when I was a kid,
Now we
you
get another brass
might
tacks in
remember
here.
this as well.
Opening
Tom
some
won't.
cracks in this.
But when I was a kid, people used to tell us to stop talking all the time, especially on the bus to school, because you'd get on the bus and your mates would be there and you'd all be shouting, and some old geezer would say, "Shut the fuck up," and then he'd be backed up by other people on the bus. There was this sense of social responsibility. And we had our school uniforms on, so we were identifiable. And sometimes people would say, "We know what school you go to," and you'd really say, "Oh God, I've got to be well behaved." The absence of that distresses me, because I do think you need that intergenerational interplay where older people are telling younger people to behave themselves and younger people are doing what they're told. That has gone, and I do think phone chats on public transport are indicative of that. That's my.
What about people
what I
speaking
think.
to other people on the train?
That's all right.
That's okay.
Because that is, although don't be too loud, but that is part and parcel of social life. That I don't mind.
Interesting.
There we go.
But I was.
It's
I was
a unique take on a popular choice, but we could go back and forth about this.
It's a more draconian take than
Brendan,
we
do you
normally-
have a theory? Because this is the second time we tried to do this. The first time it completely bamboozled Charlie Peters. He had no idea what he was
He
doing
did
with
come
it.
up
but-
with one in the end.
Have you got an example, Chris, of I mean, you talked about the Pelican Crossings before, but
Yeah,
this
the,
is we're not talking about a conspiracy theory
No,
necessarily,
just a theory.
but just something like
just a quirky theory.
connect a couple of dots.
I think, Brendan, that since COVID, people are much more helpless than they used to be, and are much more prone to the free rider issue, as illustrated by the fact that people are no longer pressing the button at Pelican Crossings as much as they used to. That's our theory.
Yeah.
So it can be about anything at all.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's a bit broad.
That's germophobia, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. It's just people being zombies. It's like,
They're just
well,
not
somebody
good.
else will do
Okay.
it. You know?
I did think about this when Tom messaged me. My theory is that anti-bullying initiatives in schools have given rise to a generation of nerds.
Nerds.
Yeah. And
Oh,
wimps.
I see. Yeah.
I think
And
that's
I
proven.
think that this is unarguable in my view. I think we need to bring back bullying. Now, I don't mean like all out
Yeah.
destroying a kid's life. Obviously, there are moments when a teacher needs to intervene, but the problem is there is this increasingly broad definition of bullying that includes everything from falling out with your friends, being called a name, some jokes in the playground, whatever. And it means that firstly, kids aren't learning how to negotiate the ups and downs of social life, which is how you become an adult. But more importantly, I think bullying, in its broadest definition, played an important social role, which was to curb the excesses of the nerdish kids and the freaky kids. So if you watch films from the 1980s, like Back to the Future and Goonies and all those films,
Biff.
when you rewatch and Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when you rewatch them, you start to identify more with the bully than with the hero, because the bully was playing a kind of social role. He was basically saying, look, you guys need to grow up. You need to stop being so self-indulgent. You need to stop behaving like such twats. And so I guarantee you, watch any of those films from the 80s, and where you would previously have identified with the hero, you will now identify with the bully.
You
I guarantee
identify
it.
with Biff rather than
Biff.
Marty McFly. Do you?
Absolutely.
In Back to the
Biff
Future.
is the hero of Back to the Future. And I watch it and you will see that is true. And the hero of The Breakfast Club is the head teacher.
Oh,
100%. And the
I
hero...
thought the bully was the guy in the leather jacket.
Yeah, but
who
he
smokes.
becomes a softie at the end of it.
Yeah.
The hero is the head teacher. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the hero is the head teacher.
Mr. Rooney.
Seriously, watch all these films. But my main point is that over intervention into kids' lives, over indulgence of their claims to victimhood and suffering, generates a generation of wimpish young adults.
Think
and you see them all around all the time.
Do you think the decline in bullying has also led to an increase in obesity?
Because they're not being called fat anymore. They might have.
There you go. I think
Might
I think it's the perfect point to end on. Tell our kids in public, bring back the bullies, bring back the fat shaming. We'll see you in 2 weeks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Last Orders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you never miss another spiked video. If you're listening to this on your podcast app, make sure you subscribe there and give us a glowing 5-star review. And if you'd like to get in touch with your questions or band suggestions, email us at lastorders@spiked-online.com.